Welcome back to my channel. My name's Lucy and I share videos on the topic of long COVID, chronic fatigue syndrome and mind-body approaches that can help those conditions and other mind-body conditions. I also offer coaching to people who are interested in using this approach for their recovery and feel they need some support doing that. So today's video, I wanted to talk about something that I hear quite often, which is, why am I getting symptoms if I have no negative emotions at the time? I feel happy, I feel positive, I feel optimistic, I go and I do something, and then I have a massive setback as a result. So why does that happen? And often when people are asking this, it's because they're not sure if the mind-body approach applies to them, because they can't see the connection between emotions and their symptoms. What I share in this video today is based on my own personal experience. It's not medical or mental health advice, and it's not advice for anyone's specific situation. Often when people say this to me, I actually feel like I really resonate because I was there myself. And for many months, I couldn't understand this and couldn't relate to a mind-body approach because I had so many experiences where I felt really good. I felt optimistic, I felt in a good mood, I was excited about doing some activity. I didn't anticipate that I was going to have symptoms afterwards. I was thinking this should be fine, I should do well. So why then would I have experienced a lot of symptoms and a big setback afterwards? For me, usually that looked like a migraine, being in bed for a number of days, and generally more fatigue, feeling worse with all of my symptoms. And one of the reasons that I actually really got on board with a mind-body approach was because of learning about this idea of repressed emotions, and how that actually would make sense if, for instance, I did some of these activities and it was an emotion that caused my symptoms, but an emotion that I wasn't aware of, an emotion that I was completely unaware of. And I know for some people this can sound so bizarre and outlandish and woo-woo and like, you know, it's kind of thinking, oh, so there's something in the back of my psyche, and could that really even be the case? But if you have a tendency of repressing emotions, you might not actually be aware that you do this, and you might be really good at doing it so that you don't notice. And that's what I learned. I realized that actually this is a pattern for me that's been going on for a much longer time, even before I was unwell, and that generally speaking, I'm pretty good at putting my emotions in a box and not even know that I'm doing that. So this is why the mind-body approach started making sense to me, because if someone said to me, you know, emotions cause symptoms, but they're emotions that you're aware of, then I would have just thought, well, that just doesn't apply to me, because there's been so many times I have felt really good, optimistic, had no negative emotion, and managed to suffer some sort of setback or increase in symptoms. And also it made sense in terms of times where I couldn't figure out what was causing an increase in symptoms. Because I think one of the most frustrating things about having one of these conditions are those moments where you have a setback and you're racking your brain trying to think, what has caused this? What did I do? Could it have been this? Could it have been that? Not knowing how to move forward because you don't know what caused it. I think it can make us feel really powerless. And naturally, people try to recognize and make an association with something because it helps us, if we can make sense of a situation, to ascribe a cause to why we're feeling the way we're feeling. So for me, the process of even just realizing that I had repressed emotions and that maybe I needed to work on this and to try to become aware of emotions was, I suppose, the main turning point in my recovery. And I think there's a process that takes place where you have to have some experience of recognizing this for yourself and your own situation for it to feel like it applies to you and makes sense to you. It can be really hard to notice what emotions are there. There were times when I was recovering that I didn't know, and times when I did recognize something and found it quite interesting. But it took a bit of figuring out and problem solving to become aware of emotions. And interestingly as well, I was able to become more aware of emotions when I had more space from my family. So if you are in a situation where you are living with people that might have an impact on how you feel, or that they may have impacted you in the past, it might also impact how you're able to become aware of emotions. So becoming aware of emotions doesn't necessarily mean having a sort of emotional outpour and crying lots. For some people, maybe that's what it looks like, but for other people, it could simply be recognizing, oh, yes, I know why this setback happened. You know, actually, I was feeling a certain way about a specific situation that I was in. It evoked feelings of not fitting in, of falling behind in life, feelings of loss because my friends have been able to progress in certain areas that I haven't. Or it's reminded me of the things I haven't been able to do. I think the other thing about being unwell is naturally it's such a difficult situation to be in that it does bring up emotions. And for some people, they know they're really good at managing difficult situations and getting on with things, looking on the bright side, doing their best. And I think those are really positive attributes. But also sometimes those are attributes in people who are used to being able to compartmentalise how they're feeling. Because in order to push yourself through really difficult experiences, to feel generally optimistic, it might involve being able to separate some difficult emotions from your current experience. If you relate to being someone who has had setbacks and increases in symptoms, but you know that at the time you didn't notice any negative emotions and you generally felt good, it could be helpful just to be curious about the idea of repressed emotions and to think about whether you have any tendencies to, say, for instance, avoid conversations where emotions might be high, or avoid opening up to people, avoid situations where you're talking about your difficulties with people. Maybe you avoid asking for help. Maybe you are very good at looking at the bright side of things. Maybe you often think, well, other people are in worse situations, so I shouldn't feel this way. Maybe you think, I have no reason to feel this way. That's another really common one. As a strategy to deny our own emotions and feelings, it's sort of saying, well, I shouldn't feel like this. I've no reason to. It's as though there's a sort of a tick box criteria for you being allowed to feel your feelings about a situation, and it has to make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, you don't allow yourself to feel it. So these are all little clues that might show that you potentially are not always acknowledging emotions or feeling your own emotions. Another one is actually laughing or smiling in a difficult situation or in an inappropriate situation. So a situation might evoke feelings and you laugh. and you know it's not a funny situation, but you've laughed. And often that's a way to quickly manage that feeling. These are different things that you can think about and just get curious. It doesn't need to make sense all at once. Even if you're just interested enough to consider that this might be something that is going on for you. And for me, it was really helpful also reading some mind-body books. So The Mind-Body Prescription or Unlearn Your Pain are two really good books that mention repressed emotions and talk about how people with these types of chronic symptoms and chronic health conditions that are unexplained do have a tendency to avoid or repress emotions. And that was also another piece of the puzzle that for me confirmed that this is what I'm experiencing. And sometimes it's hard to acknowledge it because you're not always aware of the emotions and the feelings, and that might seem strange. But for me, it's one of the most helpful insights I've ever had about myself. I would not have realized that I did this. I thought I was very emotionally aware, and I was aware of emotions that came up. So if I was particularly sad or happy, I was aware of certain emotions. I just wasn't aware of all of my emotions. And I don't think I had good skills in becoming aware. And that's still something I'm working on at the moment, because it's not something you can change overnight. It takes a bit of time and unlearning and becoming aware of patterns to change that. But for me, it was the most important thing that helped me with recovering from chronic fatigue and long COVID. If you have any thoughts on this topic, leave a comment below. I'm interested to hear if anyone relates to this idea of repressing emotions, or if you really don't relate to it. And this might not be the cause of these conditions for everyone. Of course, not every condition is a mind-body condition. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. If you are struggling with applying a mind-body approach to your recovery and you need some support doing that, feel free to get in touch with me about coaching. I can explain what that looks like, how it can help. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.